Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to talk with Brent Weinstein, who's the head of digital media at the United Talent Agency, and talk to him about how the terrain has changed. I mean, you started the digital, sector at UTA in 2003, so you've been at it now for 12 years. And we were just chatting over line. I have kind of a frame where I was talking about, something kind of silly. I don't know if any of you remember Guilty Dog. Anybody remember Guilty Dog? God, the 44 million people saw it, and he told me that's exactly the wrong way to think about this. It's such a trite, sort of silly way to think about digital representation and what's sort of evolved.
I didn't say trite.
Well, I said trite.
Right.
But I think the bigger thing is, in this arena, how has that terrain changed? How has it changed in someone like you representing talent changed because of the digital space, YouTube, Vine, Twitch, etc.?
Is this on?
Yes.
Okay, good. We started working with creators coming out of the digital space in 2006, which was a year after YouTube launched. And we recognized that there was an extraordinary amount of talent coming out of the space, and just like creating for television is a skill set that in many ways is unique to TV, and creating for the feature film business is a skill set that is unique to that. And there's some people who can move in between. The skill set for creating compelling, engaging, popular, serialized short-form content was something that was unique, and there was this younger generation that had really grasped it. And we wanted to be in business with them the same way we want to be in business with the elite creators in every other form of art and entertainment. So back in 2006, we started focusing on it, and it was a slow build. But over the past few years, it's really matured in terms of the marketplace. And what we've seen now are creators who, have mastered the art form, which is a very different art form than what we're used to. The notion of quote-unquote quality, which is always going to be in the eyes of the beholder, has changed. And really, in this case, it's what the fans want. So whether it's people that are doing beauty videos or telling more episodic and scripted content or unboxing toys, there's people who have mastered certain formats and mastered the ability to generate audience around them. And then the economics have shifted considerably, mostly because of how ad dollars have shifted into the space. But I was mentioning to you in the green room, there was a South Park episode years ago where some of the sort of YouTube 1.0 stars were going to the Bureau of Internet Money waiting for their checks, and there just wasn't any. That was the joke, is that they could wait as long as they wanted and it wasn't coming. And that's totally changed. Now the elite creators that come out of the digital space have financial opportunities that in many ways are on par with the elite creators in film and television and music. No one's making Taylor Swift money yet,
right?
But there's lots of people that are making mid, high six figures, seven figures very consistently year to year.
When you step back and I assume you've had a pretty good survey of those digital creators, are there characteristics or traits or things that you look at that stand out as being consistent among all of them?
Yeah, I think the ones that are doing the best have, I think, three things in common. The first is that, again, they've mastered whatever it is that format is that they're most well known for, but they've really figured out how to create great content that millions of fans on a global basis want to engage with. So they're talented in terms of the creation. Two, and unlike the burden that's been on artists in years past, they've also had to be their chief marketing officers. So they've had to not only make the content, but figure out how to cultivate community and keep people engaged and leverage both the current as well as the emerging social media platforms to make sure that that fan base is there and ready to connect. And then the third thing is these people have had to grow into being sophisticated business people. A lot of...
Do you help them with that?
Very much so. For us, it's helping these creators think about themselves as industries and looking at what they're doing in digital media, be it YouTube or Vine or Snapchat or Instagram, as one part of a broader portfolio, and figuring out what are the other components. Is it publishing? Is it live events? Is it some version of moving into film and television? Is it creating entirely new companies from scratch and being operators of things that have big institutional value that can attract venture capital? So for us, we work really, really closely with our clients and partners to help them unlock all of that amazing value that they've created from those first two things, which is the ability to create content that lots of people want to see.
A decade ago, I could imagine that someone was a musician or had a band or had some unique talent, was trying through YouTube to be found, to jump into another industry, to jump into TV, jump into other forms of entertainment, to have their art picked up by galleries, et cetera. And we were just talking, you said that's really changed. That dynamic is, you can still have interoperability or people moving around, but the space itself has become its own industry.
Yeah, I think that at the beginning, which again seems like forever ago, but really it was less than 10 years, YouTube in particular was viewed as a stepping stone. People would use it as a way to bypass the traditional gatekeepers, show how talented they were, and ultimately get a job in film and television, get that directing job, get that acting job. And there was nothing wrong with that approach back then. But as the marketplace continued to evolve and as the digital ecosystem continued to become more self-sustaining, and quite frankly, as sort of the influence and opportunities available to these creators grew, moving into film and television became less and less a priority, and it also became less and less interesting financially. For some creators, especially the biggest one, working in television represents a pay cut, loss of control, loss of ownership. There's virtually nothing about it that is interesting to some people. And then for others, it's still a goal. And for a much smaller percentage, is it the goal? The people who are using this to get into a film or television career where they want to leave digital in the dust, that's a very small percentage of the people in this
How is the terrain changing? I mean, is YouTube still hot, or is it sort of passé now, and there are other cooler platforms to engage and show one's art or capabilities or performance that makes sense? I mean, I think of YouTube and I still think it's cool, but I don't look at it as much as I used to.
No, I mean, if you look at the metrics of YouTube, they're still growing dramatically. Probably somewhere on the order of 1,000 hours of new content has been uploaded to YouTube since we've been sitting here today, like just me and you. So the usage of the platform on a global basis is still skyrocketing, and its utility for creators who want to build careers on top of the platform continues to evolve. They're launching new products, new features, new revenue opportunities on a frequent basis. Advertisers are spending more money there. Third-party companies like multi-channel networks are continuing to figure out how to unlock value. And YouTube itself just launched a new subscription product called Red, which, like Spotify Premium, gives people the ability to enjoy everything you would get on YouTube, but minus ads and the ability to play videos offline. And then they're going to add in a layer of exclusive original programming early next year. But they aren't the only game in town. We have a number of clients who've built their brand predominantly on Vine. That's something that just didn't exist a few years ago, and now it's one of the most powerful social media and digital video platforms in the world. I think Snapchat is something that is going to be increasingly important. The engagement metrics coming out of Snapchat blow away virtually everything else that we see. The ephemeral nature of the content, the fact that it's there and then it's gone, really requires fans to be on it in a real-time way, almost like appointment television, and there's something really powerful there, and a lot of our clients are utilizing it more and more. And Facebook is, still in many ways the sleeping giant. The amount of sheer volume that they can drive is pretty unparalleled. And as they figure out what their content strategy is going to be and what their revenue sharing strategy is going to be, it's going to be a really big sort of sea change potentially when they really commit to the space.
Last year I interviewed your CEO, Jeremy Zimmer, and we talked about more classic Hollywood, more classic representation. I actually asked him what the state of the story was from his, in Hollywood about it. And reflecting on people like Jeff Berg, the chairman, founder of ICM,
Sure.
Berg was probably most proud, he always says, of being able to package and put together The Last Emperor. And I'm interested in how, because the way you talk about this, you have a dexterity that's very different in that. Do you see yourself as an agent of this industry that's creating things like the old agent moguls used to, or is it something that that it's happening so fast that you're just holding on?
You interviewed our CEO, Jeremy Zimmer, and he's been a real driving force to make sure that our agency, UTA, is constantly on our toes and leaning forward and trying to be entrepreneurial and thinking not only about how we take advantage of what's out there now, but what's next. And if what is coming next isn't inspiring, how do we build that next thing on our own? So being an agent as a result has changed quite a bit. We're not just representing actors, writers, directors, producers who historically have needed representation to get to the opportunities in the marketplace. We're working with digital media stars who, to a certain degree, have built a lot of their fame on their own, and it's our job to come in and help them take that to the next level and complement that with things that they can't do on their own and open up doors that maybe wouldn't otherwise be open. But we're also working with technology entrepreneurs, and we're working with corporate clients.
So you would
like Delta
represent
Airlines.
an engineer?
Well, we wouldn't represent an engineer to go and get him or her their employment deal at a Silicon Valley company, but we absolutely would work with early stage operators who have a concept for the next big thing, especially if it's in our lane of sort of the convergence of technology and media. And we've been investing in companies, we've been incubating companies on our own, we've been working directly with early stage founders. And so for us as an agency, what it comes down to is our belief that where we sit in the ecosystem gives us a tremendous amount of marketplace intelligence, relationships, currency, expertise, and then we can package that up in different ways and utilize it for clients and types of clients that are much more diverse maybe than the agency landscape of 20, 30 years ago.
I want to go to the audience in just a moment, but in this discussion which we've had all day around convergence, technology, entertainment, whatnot, it seems that very early in 2003, when you helped launch this, you had a real vision of what was coming next, and you had confidence that this transition was going to matter and would get to scale. I assume you did, right?
If I seemed like I was confident, then fantastic.
Yeah, okay.
I had no.
But
I
you took a risk.
I had no effing clue what was going to happen, and quite frankly, I still don't.
Really?
As I said,
because that's my next question: is if you were to make a similar kind of bet today on new trends, looking out ahead, what would be some of those things you see? Well, it's the classic "what's next" question.
Part of it is knowing what you don't know, and I think that if in 2003 we could have predicted that Facebook and YouTube and Snapchat and Twitter and Instagram were going to change the world, quite frankly, if we knew that, I would have founded one of those companies and I'd be on a beach somewhere instead of sitting here with you lovely people. So we never know, but our job is to not be so in the weeds that we're not focused on the horizon, so we can't really anticipate what's coming next and figure out how, for us as an agency and for our clients and our partners, how we can make sure we're well positioned to take advantage of how the marketplace evolves. And what we did in 2006 is a really good example. We didn't create YouTube, I wish we did, but when we saw what was happening on YouTube, we moved very, very quickly to put in place a team that could identify and start working with the elite people that were coming out of that platform. And we want to make sure that we're continuing to innovate both with and for our clients so that we can take advantage of what's coming next. And again, we don't know what the future is. What we do know is that, and I know Kathy from STX mentioned it earlier, we're going to continue to see an increased connectivity between the people who create content, the people who consume it, and the things in the middle are going to be a little bit more blurry. There's a lot of questions about what's going to happen with this OTT SVOD environment. As the bundle changes, it's being replaced with an almost infinite number of subscription offerings, and how are consumers going to react to that? So we just know that relationship between content creator and consumer is going to be very, very critical, and we are very focused on accentuating that.
I want to go to Jonathan here in just a minute, but how do you, I guess the big question, one of the big takeaways I've heard from today is that marketplace is becoming so fragmented, and you're getting away from big numbers, and we, in my interview with Andrew Singer earlier, he said, I'm able to make 5 shows that reach 1 million people each, will make a lot more money and be much more successful in their terms than one big show that will hit 5 million people. When you're representing talent and the various stakeholders you have in that, are you losing scale to make it worthwhile?
No, I think it's never been a better time to be in the content business or in the business of representing people who create premium content. There's more buyers than ever before, there's more platforms than ever before, and the business models are diverse. I think that, using a baseball analogy, we think about it differently. The home run swing is different. It used to be broadcast television to syndication and Big Bang Theory just makes everybody a bunch of money, and that still exists, by the way. Broadcast television is still a pretty good business for a lot of people. Netflix is a very different type of business model. Hulu, which is really coming onto the scene as a strong way, has their version of it. So as sellers and as the ones representing the creators, we just have to be mindful of how the different buyers are approaching the marketplace and which is the right fit for each of our clients. Because we might have a client who prizes, among all else, just the broadest possible distribution. We might have a client who really wants the biggest possible financial opportunity. We might have someone who wants the prestige of a particular network or partner. And we have to figure out how we sort and rank those priorities to help guide them and their art to make sure that it lands in the right place.
Fascinating. Jonathan.
As somebody who grew up in making movies in the 70s and 80s, we always thought about Hollywood studios as the big gorilla, right?
Right.
And today, Apple's market cap is $650 billion, and Time Warner's market cap is $56 billion. So does that dynamic of where the capital is deployed change the way the next 5 years will be in terms of mergers and acquisitions, all sorts of other activity?
It's, again, who am I to predict? I think that it's less about where the capital is deployed and what role different organizations choose to play in the ecosystem. Apple, to date, has chosen to build a really big business by putting their hardware business aside, which is substantial, but in their software business, just taking a little piece of everybody's revenue without actually having to produce anything, right? So every app that's sold on the store, every game that's sold on the store, every movie that's downloaded, every song, every TV show, they just take a little piece, and it's grown into a really big business.
Amazon and Google are not doing
and everyone's got their own motivations, right? And Amazon is very unique in that everything that they're doing in content, at least in part, is designed to drive more people to buy things on Amazon, right? So in many ways, unlike Netflix, which has to have a business model that says if we spend X on content, we should make Y through subscription, and Y has to be bigger than X. Amazon, kind of like a big box retailer like Walmart, if they want to, can spend as much as they want on stuff at the front of the store to get you into the back of the store to buy more diapers and batteries. So every company has its own motivations and their own business models to keep in mind, and that's what makes it a really fascinating time in the business. A few years ago, most of the media companies were all playing by the same rules, and now it is a landscape where everybody's motivations are a little bit different, everyone's business objectives are a little bit different, and as a result, there's all these different business models that are coming to the forefront, and we have to see which ones ultimately win out and what's the best for artists and what's the best for consumers, and what is most likely is that there is no one clear winner, that a bunch of these things are going to exist and be successful in parallel.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, right in the back. Jim Jusko.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Hey, Brent. Hey, what do you, either of you, both of you, make about maybe a little bit of what I'd call a countertrend? Sort of, if you look at content on the internet, it's moving up that cost and craft ladder from, user-generated to curated to premium to super premium, and today we've seen, I think we're a month away since the announcement that H2 would be taken over by Vice Media. So the suggestion that internet content starts to develop more toward what traditional TV is. Do you reckon that there's any counter-trend that's taking us toward what traditional TV was?
For me, I think that we're stuck in this really weird semantic divide where we're still referencing things as television versus digital or internet content, and I think that can and probably has to shift. I think that what we'll get to is some version of calling things theatrical length content and long form, and there'll be some sub versions of that.
We know long form.
Whether it's an hour or a half hour, and then short form, because the notion of digital really is now just about the distribution mechanism, not the form factor of what's being distributed. So I think that within those things, like every content business, there's going to be varying degrees of production value and quality. The stuff that you see on a basic cable channel for a non-scripted show is far less expensive than even the non-scripted programming on CBS. And the scripted programming, on some networks pales in comparison to what HBO spends on Game of Thrones. So I think really the big shift is going to be getting away from calling things television versus digital or internet and moving towards
and unscripted
thinking
is still
about
growing
the form
like crazy,
factor.
right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not, there's other people who could be up here probably to talk about the television business with much more expertise than I, but yeah, I mean, the television business is a very healthy business right now. It's changing, but it's a very good business.
So just to wrap up, and maybe this is a naive question, but I do think about it, could a Bruce Springsteen, who's just so mammoth out there through all the old pipes, evolve with the kind of pipes and representation, and if they were to come out of nowhere without, the traditional path, how would working with you be different for the next era as Bruce Springsteen?
Are you saying how would Bruce Springsteen, as
come
he
up
exists
out of
today?
YouTube, Vine, get counsel from
it's happening.
the digital tech star? I mean, can you give us a human example, perhaps, of maybe one of your favorite digital stars?
Sure. No, I mean, listen, we represent a gentleman by the name of Andrew Batchelor, and he goes by the moniker of King Batch. He's the #1 most followed Viner in the world. He's a classically trained actor. He's incredibly talented, really ambitious, a great guy to boot, and when you see him, you think to yourself, okay, if there's a short list somewhere of who's the next Will Smith, this guy's on it, right?
Wow.
And, like with most of these stars, by the time we're in business with him, he's gotten to a certain level, and our job is to work really closely with him, really closely with his team, really closely with his lawyer and his manager, and figure out where do we want this to go, and where does television fit in, and where do movies fit in, and how do we continue to, expand, the empire, so to speak, on the digital side. And there's so many great things going on for him. He's had, a lot of reoccurring roles in some pretty big TV shows like The Mindy Project and House of Lies and Black Jesus on Adult Swim. He created a television show which was packaged with Key and Peele as producers. And sold, there were multiple networks that wanted the show, but it ultimately sold to Fox, and now it's in development for consideration for next fall. So he's a guy who has opportunities in virtually every lane of media: live entertainment, film, television, publishing, licensing, consumer products, and certainly what he's doing in the digital space and all the brands that support him there. And this guy's a total superstar. I mean, he is a superstar in every sense of the word. It's just a different definition of superstar maybe than what we would have had in 1987.
So on that, I'm going to go check. Tell me his name again.
King Batch.
I'm going to go check
Follow
out
him
King
on
Batch
Vine.
and get on Vine. And thank you very much.
Thanks.
Brent Weinstein, Head of Digital Media for United Talent Agency. Thank you so much, Brent. Thanks.